Rules of regulators like SEC, NGX, and the rest in corporate governance, monitoring, and enforcement. And our guest this morning is Mr. TOYIN ADENUGBA, ACIS, Head Rules and Adjudication, Nigeria Exchange Group, that's NGX Regulation Limited. Good morning, Mr. ADENUGBA.
Good morning, madam.
All right.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us on the program this morning. All right, with me in the studio is Mr. Michael Umogun, who is Deputy Registrar Operations, ICSAN. Good morning, Mr. Umogun.
Good morning, Fumi. Good morning, listeners. Nice to be here.
All right, great to see you. We'll take this message and we'll be right back.
The world is constantly evolving into a knowledge-based economy where skills and competencies constitute the lifeblood of public and corporate governance. You therefore need to empower yourself to fit into this new world by gaining basic knowledge and improving your skill set in the governance-focused disciplines. That is why every aspiring as well as practicing professional in governance field needs ICSAN.
ICSAN. What is ICSAN?
ICSAN is a leading statutorily established professional body dedicated to enhancing the status and practice of corporate governance and public administration. ICSAN members are trained as chartered secretaries and administrators.
Who are chartered secretaries and administrators?
Chartered secretaries are high-ranking governance professionals with a broad base of skills, unique amongst other professions. They are trained in law, finance, accounting, administration, strategy development, and corporate governance. In today's world, chartered secretaries and administrators discharge a wide range of duties and responsibilities, including functioning as chairmen of companies, executive directors, non-executive directors, company secretaries, risk managers, compliance managers, board evaluators, and corporate governance evaluators.
That is interesting. How then do I become a chartered secretary and administrator?
Good. Go to the Institute's website, www.icsan.org. You can also visit the National Secretariat of ICSAN at Plot 6, Elephant Cement Way, Alausa, Ikeja, Lagos, to get full information on how to become members. ICSAN, the hub of governance professionals.
All right, ICSAN, definitely the hub of governance professionals. And like I said earlier, we're looking at roles of regulators like SEC, NGX, and the rest in corporate governance, monitoring, and enforcement. Now, Mr. ADENUGBA, let's have you highlight the regulators. Who are the regulators in the context of corporate governance in Nigeria?
Thank you very much. In Nigeria, the regulators are stipulated, the Financial Reporting Council Act of 2011 empowers the Financial Reporting Council to issue guidance on corporate governance in Nigeria. And that act places a responsibility on Financial Reporting Council to issue good corporate governance practices in the public and private sector. And in carrying out those responsibilities, the FRC developed a code of corporate governance in collaboration with sectoral regulators. And these sectoral regulators are the Central Bank of Nigeria, the Securities and Exchange Commission, the National Insurance Commission, the National Pension Commission, the Nigerian Communications Commission, the Nigerian Stock Exchange, which is now NGX, the Nigerian Exchange Group, which has transferred its self-regulatory function to NGX Regulation Limited, where I work, and the Corporate Affairs Commission. So these are the regulators in the context of corporate governance in Nigeria.
All right, great. Why is the issue of monitoring of compliance relevant in relation to corporate governance code?
Compliance monitoring, you use it to ascertain the level of compliance of a company with applicable rules and regulations, basically. The concept also helps to ensure that companies abide by applicable corporate governance codes and guidelines prescribed by regulators. If you cast your mind to the definition of corporate governance by the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, that's the OECD, it says that corporate governance involves a set of relationships between a company's management, its board, its shareholders, and other stakeholders. So, because a company has different stakeholders, which it is accountable to, corporate governance ensures that structures are put in place to manage the relationship between the company and these stakeholders, which include the shareholders, the employees, creditors, regulators, government, and the general public. So if you connect this knowledge, the code itself, so the code contains about 28 corporate governance principles and 247 recommended practices. So monitoring is important to ensure that the board and management of companies are accountable to their shareholders and stakeholders, and to ensure that companies are transparent and fair in their dealings. It also helps to protect public and investors' interests. And monitoring will help to reveal those companies that have adopted good corporate governance practices and those that have not. So where compliance has been inadequate, sectoral regulators have the responsibility to ensure that regulated entities comply with the principles enshrined in the code, and also impose sanctions where appropriate.
All right. We'll probably need to expatiate a little bit on, some of these regulators and their roles. Regulators like the Security Exchange Commission, the NGX group which you belong to, the Corporate Affairs Commission, and the Financial Reporting Council, the roles they have to play in ensuring compliance with the governance code, regulations, and laws.
So the regulators you've mentioned, that's SEC, NGX, RECO, and CAC, they have oversight of various companies and institutions and operators in Nigeria. So they have a duty to develop laws, rules, and guidance to regulate and supervise activities of companies and the practices of and the practitioners in the the sectors under their purview. For example, when you talk about SEC, you talk about all the PLCs operating in Nigeria. When you talk about NGX RECO, on behalf of NGX, so it regulates all the issuers listed, whose securities are listed on the NGX, trading license holders that we call, who you call stockbrokers. And the CAC has oversight over all companies incorporated in Nigeria under CAMA. So that's the Companies and Allied Matters Act. So the NCCG 2018 places a responsibility on the sectoral regulators and securities exchanges to monitor the implementation of the code and impose appropriate sanctions. So you know that the SEC is the apex regulator on the capital market. So that the SEC also issued the Corporate Governance Guidelines 2020 for public companies. And it is structured in line with the principles of the NCCG 2018. So for using the capital markets, for example, the SEC, that's SEC, and the NGX RECO have been empowered by the code to monitor and enforce public and companies and listed companies' compliance with the code. So if you cast your mind to the CAC now, the CAC is the agency with responsibility for supervising the regulation, the registration, formation, and incorporation of companies in Nigeria. So they oversee the implementation of CAMA, that is Companies and Allied Matters Act 2020, which also incorporates corporate governance requirements. So if you cast your mind to things like AGMs, board meetings, and so on and so forth. So those are their responsibilities.
All right, great. Now, is there any attempt by some of the regulators to make compliance easier for entities to regulate through adoption of appropriate technology?
Yes. In fact, most regulators have adopted various regulatory technology tools. So when we say regulatory technology, we mean RegTech. You have FinTech for banks and then operators in the financial services industry. So we have RegTech tools. So you have various regulatory technology tools. So for example, the Financial Reporting Council launched a new portal in March 2022 for the electronic filing of the NCCG 2018 compliance report. So this is in addition to registration and reporting portal that they already have in existence. And then for the CBN, it has different technology portals for reporting and analyzing reports submitted by banks and other financial institutions. NICOM, which is the National Insurance Commission, also has an online portal for registration and filing of reports. And then CAC has a company registration portal. So bringing it home to NGX RECO, NGX Regulation Limited, where I work, we have the issuers portal, which we call the X-Issuer. We launched it in 2014. It helps to ensure prompt and real-time dissemination of issuer information to the market and investing public. So this helps to address issues around the information asymmetry in the market. So everybody receives information about what is happening at the same time. And then we have the X-Whistle, which is a secure online portal through which investors, members of the public, even you and I, with information regarding possible violations of market rules or laws can be reported either on a disclosed basis or on an anonymous basis. And then we have the X-Boss. So the X-Boss is the broker oversight and supervision system, which helps to improve the efficiency and security of regulatory communication between NGX and our trading license holders. So we introduced this in 2015, and it covers regulatory filing, financial analysis, complaints management, records, inspections and examinations, request processing, circulars and market bulletins, and so on, as well as regulatory approval, and also, most importantly, data security. And then we have the Smart Self-Assessment, which we call the SAF. It provides us with an opportunity to project a 360-degree view of the compliance status of trading license holders. So you can see an end-to-end view of how compliant the trading license holder is. So those are, some regulatory technology tools that we have deployed and that are available in the market for to make compliance easy for entities that are regulated.
Now, since the regulators have, among other things, power to impose fines, are there any measures in place to ensure this power is not arbitrarily used?
Okay, thank you. First and foremost, fines are set to serve as, as a deterrent, to stop you, to dissuade you from non-compliance. And they're usually in the discretion of each regulator on the specific fine for any particular infraction. So all the rules and regulations of regulators often prescribe the circumstance, that's the event, the applicable amount, and the manner in which financial penalties can be imposed or applied. So this is further strengthened by their internal processes as well as checks at all levels to ensure that fines are not imposed arbitrarily or utilized arbitrarily. At NGX Reco, where I work, we go a step further. We publish a set of all the regulatory infractions committed by market participants, including the type and nature of the infraction, the applicable rule or regulation breached, as well as the related fine. So there is no room for arbitrariness. You can find the information on our website. And then the fines are utilized and accounted for in a way that engenders, market confidence and trust in NGX Regulation Limited, as well as our fine imposing process. So speaking for NGX regulation, so we do this in line with global best practices. And we also have a policy on utilization of fines, which stipulates that fines should only be used for things like capacity building of investors, of regulated entities and persons, of NGX Regulation Limited, and also we only spend it on promoting market development and strengthening regulatory tools. So there are things in place to ensure that the fines are not arbitrarily used or imposed.
All right. Thank you so much to Mr. TOYIN ADENUGBA, ACIS, Head Rules and Adjudication, Nigeria Exchange Group, which is NGX Regulation Limited. Thank you for joining us on Corporate Governance Platform this morning.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Umulgo, some announcements, I guess?
Yes.
Okay.
We have 3 announcements. The first one is the practical training for corporate secretaries will be rolling out in about 15 minutes from now. Members and non-members that are interested in the program could quickly dash to our website www.ixan.org for relevant details for participation. The second announcement is concerning the Nigeria Data Protection Regulation. In order to ensure that members are not in infraction of this important government regulation that will come into enforcement as from 2023, the Secretariat is organizing an awareness program about this government legislation, and we'll be having a briefing by one of our consultants on the 29th November 2022 by 2 p.m. concerning this particular program. We will be providing additional details through our various social media platforms concerning this particular training. And I want to add that this particular initiative is free. We are not charging any money. It's part of our thank you pack for our members at the end of this year. There are other related programs that will still happen before the end of the year, and we'll make those known to members and other members of the public through this particular channel. The last announcement for the day concerns the Fast Track to Membership series of the Institute. Applicants for this program that has not received an email from the Secretariat should get in touch with the coordinators of the program at the Secretariat, or call a Deputy Registrar Operations on 0802 311 7969 for details, or simply send an inquiry email to fasttrack@icsan.org. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Michael Umogun, Deputy Registrar Operations, ICSAN. And that's our package this morning on Corporate Governance Platform, brought to you by the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSAN. We'll return again next week, Wednesday, on a fresh edition of Corporate Governance Platform. I am Funme Omoburiu. Enjoy the rest of the day.